You've heard the story, Oak Island possibly being two islands instead of one and being separated where the swamp is. Fred Nolan said that for many, many years. Hey, everybody, Jeff here with J Free 906 Podcast. And yes, is it possible that it was two islands? I don't know about that, but how about one island with a sand channel going up inside that could have been some 50 feet deep? We had Jeremy Church out from Panther Geoscience for part two of the seismic data that he had to share with us. Here's a clip of him talking about the anomaly in the swamp and how deep it really was. Hope you enjoy this.
So what I'm going to do here is this is a nice little 3D visualization of kind of the main characters, main layers, and what kind of make up the swamp. So this is the swamp data set, kind of turned on its side. North is straight into the page, essentially. So yeah, so what you've got here is you've got your Halifax slate basement. And this is a little video, so you'll see as it goes. So this is kind of your real hard edge right here. This is not slate out here. This is now marine sediments, but when you're picking it, it was like a time equivalent in the seismic or a stratigraphy equivalent in the seismic. So Halifax slate, this is that hard edge that I'm talking about. You can see how you've got, a depression. So blues are lows, reds and yellows are high in this kind of time. And then you work your way up. So there's going to be another layer pops up here in a second. This is called, I believe, the Gaze River. You can see this depression remains, and it's actually kind of grown. And this is the swamp basin base. So this is my base.
Oh, wow.
This is what I think. So this is kind of your main body of what the true swamp kind of water body would have filled at one time. Wow. So this is that. It's basically, it was a good reflector in the seismic. It was intact. It was relatively hard. And this is why I figured this layer was kind of down around that 50-foot level. But then as time went on and things were modified, like roads getting put in, started to fill in with junk. So here you go. This is kind of still that basin, but you can see that it's filled in with a bunch of stuff. And if you can see there's a shadowy outline of what I hesitantly call the ship-shaped anomaly there. So if we go back, you had a big basin right there, classic basin, but then it's filled in with a bunch of junk. But there's something strange sitting in there that does not kind of match the morphology of the rest of the stuff in there. It's kind of running right along, like you're not right at the edge where kind of the hard edge was of the Halifax slate, where everything was like it was like a hinge point and everything kind of fell off that. It's more into the swamp, not quite in the deepest part, a little bit offset, but it's still in a relatively deep part of where it would have been, the deepest part of the basin. And so this is modern. This is essentially, this is not LiDAR derived. This is actually structure derived from the survey points from the seismic, because like I said, we used survey grade RTK packs, centimeter accuracy. So we get very detailed elevations just from that. So, but anyways, you can see, of course, Nolan's Peninsula.
Yep.
Is what it looks like now. So somewhere below the surface here and down to that next layer down, well, here you go. Here's your ship-shaped anomaly. So the way this was created, this map, was through refraction. So this is how refraction ties into all this. Because we were so shallow here and the quality of the reflection data wasn't quite as crisp being in the swamp, I asked for a refraction solution. I'm not going to call it a ship still. I'm not going to do it. They tried to bully me into it. I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. So I let Marty say it, I believe. But but the other crazy thing about it is the dimensions of it. I mean, it fits what the galleon ships should be, like in terms of rough shape and the dimensions. Like it's just so shocking, right? Like I honestly didn't believe it when it just, because like it didn't even take a ton of work to tease this out. It was just literally, okay, let's map out that refraction solution. Let's take a look at it, and boom, it like just popped out like this. And like definitely nature can create stuff that looks kind of like this, but it just doesn't really, the one thing that's been brought up over the years is because that is kind of the deepest part or close to the deepest part of the swamp, there was always talk that there was slightly higher energy water flowing through there when it wasn't all filled full of muck. And it was basically like a little sand channel, right? Because you had this slightly faster moving water within here. It's like a little creek almost. But once again, you'd expect that to traverse the entire swamp and not just be localized to here. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, it's really a crazy thing. Because like I was convinced at first. You know, like I watched, I think it was from season 3, that whole episode about, you know, they showed the cartoon, excuse me, of the ship flowing in there,
Yeah.
or sailing into there.
Yeah.
And then,
And like it literally, like, you know, like it actually makes a ton of sense. And the other cool thing is the prevailing winds come from the south in the summer. You could have sailed right in, no problem. And then come winter, the winds change direction. They push you from the north and push you right out. So it could have been a very, you know, a relatively realistic thing to do with a, you know, a large sail ship. The other thing is it's a lot more protected here. Like, you know, Smith's Cove is actually quite open. Like, it seems protected, but it's actually quite open to some pretty, you know, heavy current and open water. Whereas here, you just kind of cruise right in, and you know, you could get to the shore fairly easily, and you had nice slopes on each side. So it made a lot of logical sense, right? I still refuse to call it a ship because there's really no way for me to give you
Makes sense.
name.
Yep.
But you know, it's no different than looking at an ultrasound, I guess, when a doctor is trying to make an interpretation about what they're seeing in terms of structures within their ultrasound. You know, you can draw your own conclusion, but it's one of the things that makes the most logical sense on the island, and it fits the dimensions and morphology of what you'd expect one of these freaking things to look like. So if it was a ship that still has somewhat intact wooden structure, that is going to be faster than the surrounding sediments. Any sound waves, energy waves they're going to traverse that. So it is going to make a critical refraction. So it also makes sense that you know, you did have a good kind of refraction event along it.
Yeah. You know, and it's weird too. I mean, you know, when you take a look at the simple things that they have found in the swamp, the stone road, they have found that stone platform that was on the north side of Nolan's Peninsula, and the ramp that was right there also on the north side of Nolan's Peninsula, but just south of the stone platform. And they talked about it. Oh, this would make a perfect. Why would somebody go through all the trouble to make something like that? I mean, for what purpose would you go through all the manpower to get all that stone and make a layer and then pile that stone in there to make a platform, unless it was for unloading a ship? And Fred Nolan was very adamant about the fact that he called it 2 islands. Looking at your video there, as it was looking at the different layers, it looked like it may have been a channel or a inlet.
Correct.
You know? And so you could, if it was 50 feet deep, you could bring a pretty good size boat ship in there. And then if it got stuck for some reason in the muck that was, you know, a little bit at the bottom and they couldn't get it out, what's going to happen to it over time? I'm not saying there's one, Jack, I'm not saying there's a boat in there, but it makes logical sense that it could happen based upon the information that you just gave us. So I don't know.
I was going to say, even without the stories of there being a boat in there, Spanish galleon going in, you could have shown me this and go, "What do you think it is, Seth?" And I go, "Well, it looks like a boat," you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy, right? Like, I thought I was going nuts. I actually didn't. I was afraid to show it. I had that classic, like, oh, God, nobody's going to believe me. Like, this is, like, it can't be that easy, you know? And
wow, there you go. How dense do you think it is? Is it stone dense or is it thick mud? Or, I mean, what do you think?
So it's not stone dense. It's kind of, and it's a little thicker than the slurry muck stuff. And so if you got a bunch of waterlogged wood that's kind of slowly disintegrating, you know, it's going to be pretty packed full of muck and stuff like that. But it is denser than that. So.
Wow. So a galleon ship wouldn't fit in a depth of water. I don't know what the draft on the galleon ship is. I really don't know. Unfortunately, I know somebody out there may know. And if you do, please jump in the chat and let us know what you think. But I have no idea what the draft on a
Mhm.
galleon ship would be. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have keels or anything like that, right? They're just
No,
balanced by
yeah, no.
ballast and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Exactly. So they would be kind of shallow.
yeah, I think so. So it's definitely once again within the realm of possibility for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really some cool information. Tell you what, part 1 and part 2 both on the YouTube channel right here, JFree906. Hope you check them out. It's every Wednesday night right here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for the recap of every single Curse of Oak Island episode. And we're going to be doing Skinwalker Ranch coming up very, very soon as that season starts.